Erec V clipping 1249 November 22, 1286, was King of Denmark from 1259 to 1286. After his father Christopher I died, his mother Margaret Sambiria ruled Denmark in his name until 1266, proving to be a competent regent. Between 1261 and 1262, the young King Erec was a prisoner in Holstein following a military defeat. Afterwards, he lived in Brandenburg, where he was initially held captive by John I, Margrave of Brandenburg c. 12,130,1266. 1. Nickname. The king's nickname clipping or glipping refers to a medieval coin that has become clipped, a clipped penny or cut in order to indicate devaluation. The nickname is an unkind reference to his lack of trustworthiness. He short-changed his people and the monarchy. 2. Regency. When his father, King Christopher I died in 1259, Erec was too young to rule in his own right. The Danish court appointed his mother, Queen Margaret, to rule as regent. She was the daughter of Duke Sambert II of Pomerania and Matilda of Mecklenburg, and was an intelligent woman. Immediately, she had to fight to keep her son on the throne from two powerful enemies. Archbishop Jacob Erlandsen ca. 12,201,274, and Erec Abels, who was Duke of Schleswig from 1260 until his death in 1272. Archbishop Erlandsen had excommunicated the bishop who had anointed young Erec as king. Duke Erec was a nephew of King Christopher and had been in frequent conflict with the king. 3-4. Taking advantage of the situation, Chief Jeromar II of Region C. 12,181,260 gathered an army of Wends and invaded Zealand. Queen Margaret raised an army, but was soundly defeated in 1259 near Ringsted. Jeromar went on to attack and pillage Copenhagen later that year. He shipped his army to Skane in order to continue his campaign. Unfortunately for him, he encountered the wrath of a farmer's wife, who killed him outright. The Wends fled back to Region 5. Believing the Wendish incursion showed the queen was weak, Duke Erec rebelled. The queen was forced to raise another army and march to Jutland to put the duke in his place. She defeated the duke, and while he negotiated a truce with her, he gathered allies in northern Germany to help him attack. The combined forces defeated Queen Margaret in 1261 at the Battle of Lohed, south of Danevirke in Schleswig-Holstein. She and her son were captured and were forced to cede royal properties in southern Jutland to secure their release. 6. In 1260, Queen Margaret had released Archbishop Erlandsen from prison, thinking he would be grateful. But he subsequently issued an interdict over all of Denmark, trying to force her and Erec off the throne. In 1263, acting as regent of Denmark, the queen wrote to Pope Urban IV asking him to intervene with Archbishop Erlandsen. After several years of quibbling, the Pope agreed to several items that the queen wanted. He issued a dispensation to alter the terms of the Danish succession that would permit women to inherit the Danish throne. This would make it possible for one of King Erec's sisters to become queen in the event of his death, because he had no children. Although Pope Urban IV gave his consent, it never became an issue. King Eric's son Erec Mend eventually succeeded to the Danish throne. Reign. As an adult ruler, King Erec V tried to enforce his power over the church and nobility. In the 1270s, the king attacked Smland. His conflict with the church was brought to a satisfying result, with the help of the Pope. By 1282, he had so offended the nobles throughout Denmark that he was forced to accept a charter Danish, einstning a kind of a Danish Magna Carta which limited his authority and guaranteed the ancient rights and customs that preserved the power of the nobles. 7. The king signed the charter at Nyborg Castle, recognized as Denmark's first ever constitution in existence. However, at the time of King Eric's death, the rights and guarantees of the 1282 charter would lose their effectiveness, since the next king would not be bound by the same agreement. 8-9 Mysterious death. Legend has it that several nobles swore an oath that they would murder Erec. In revenge for personal slights or policies the king enforced that they did not like. Chief among the conspirators was Marshal Danish, Marsk Stig Andersen Havide and Jacob Nielsen, Count of Halland. They paid Rain Johnson 1-5-4-1294, one of the king's companions, to keep them informed as to the king's activities, in order to fulfill their oath. 10-11-12. November 1286 found the king at Viborg in central Jutland. After a long day's hunt in the countryside led by Rain Johnson, the king and a few attendants couldn't find their way back to the king's farm at Viborg. Rain suggested that they take shelter for the night of November 22, 1286, in the church barn in the village of Finderup Lade. The assassins, dressed as Franciscan friars, were kept informed as to the king's whereabouts and waited for everyone to settle down for the night. Once the king fell asleep, they rushed from their hiding places and stabbed and hacked the king to death. 13. Tradition has it that he received 56 stab wounds. The folktale that grew up around this event has Stig Andersen personally striking the first blows. In revenge for King Eric's seduction of Stig's wife, while Stig himself was off serving with the king's army, Eric's bloody corpse was discovered the next morning. The court immediately blamed the nation's most powerful nobleman, Stig Andersen Havide and Count Jacob of Halland, and outlawed them and 7 others. Only one was accused of killing the king. The others were accused of involvement. Whether they actually had anything to do with the murder remains a mystery. Stig Havide fled the country to take up piracy. Certainly, Stig Havide was not the only person who had a reason to want to see King Erec eliminated. Valdemar IV, who King Erec was forced to accept as Duke of Schleswig in 1283, as well as many of Archbishop Jacob Erlandsen's appointments to bishoprics, remained bitter enemies of the king until his death. 15. These banished nobles had also raided the Danish countryside for 20 years with the support of Håkon V of Norway. 16. Issue. King Erec V married Agnes of Brandenburg c. 12,571,304 on November 11, 1273, at Schleswig. She was the daughter of John I, Margrave of Brandenburg d. 1266, and Bridget of Saxony. The marriage was probably agreed upon during King Eric's captivity in Brandenburg by Agnes' father from 1262 to 1264. Tradition claims that the king was released from captivity on his promise to marry Agnes without a dowry. 1718. They had the follow injishu Rikeza c. 1270 to 27 October 1308, married Lord Nicholas to of Worrell. Erec VI 1-74 1319, Christopher 1-76 1332. Martha 1-78 1341, married King Birger of Sweden. Catherine c. 1281 1283, died young. Valdemar. Elizabeth.